Most of the men who built the canal were not Americans assigned to bachelor quarters, but tens of thousands of desperately poor workers from impoverished Caribbean islands who were housed under far more primitive living conditions and worked for far less money.
The laborers paid 90 cents a day, and their meals were 9 cents. Their quarters were provided, and the rest, of course, was up to them whether they saved it or spent it. Well, my pay as a machinist, I think, started at about 38 cents an hour. And I received 4 promotions, and in the 5.5 years.
There was only one thing equal between the Americans and the massive black labor force: the possibility that tropical diseases would claim their lives. It was a reality that Roosevelt had faced during the Spanish-American War.
13 times of the men that were killed during the battle had died from malaria fever, from disease. So when Teddy Roosevelt knew that we had a sanitation problem to solve, that Dr. Gorgas was the man for the job. He was the man that eradicated, is a word, the malaria fever and typhoid in Cuba. He felt that in addition to the health situation, we had to build streets because some of the streets were drainage ditches. And he called off all the work on the canal until they got in a sanitary condition to where the men then could feel free to work. That had to be done first.
Drainage ditches were cleaned of standing water where mosquitoes breed. Swamp grass was trimmed to allow small fish to feast on the insect larvae. Ponds and puddles were sprayed with a film of oil to kill the newly hatched insects. Living quarters were fumigated, and insect screens were attached to windows. As the environment was being controlled, massive shipments of sanitation materials arrived. 120 tons of insecticide, 8,000 pounds of soap, thousands of buckets, brooms, and rakes. In a few months, the men had accomplished the impossible. By Christmas of 1905, yellow fever had been eliminated in Panama. But health did not come cheaply. Every mosquito killed cost the United States government $10. But the government went even further to protect the workers. The men were prescribed regular rations of quinine.
They would have a man with liquid quinine. The person that would go around to the shops, the gangs, wherever there was activity and men working, and you would take the required amount of liquid quinine.
But quinine was distributed to workers in a racially segregated way. American men were labeled as gold employees, and the black Caribbean laborers as silver employees.
And the gold would drink out of the gold cup, and the non-Americans, of course, would drink out of the silver cup.
When canal construction began full force, new dangers surfaced. The hardest work was in the Culebra Cut, where whole mountains were removed to carve a path 8 miles long, 300 feet wide, 50 feet deep. This man-made gorge would later be filled with the cool waters dammed from the Chagres River. Until then, the men worked in 120-degree temperatures to blast away sliding hillsides and dig 200 trainloads of earth every day. 50 to 60 steam shovels were operating at any one time in a choreographed dance with non-stop locomotives.
So they arranged the timing that the train would move very slowly. The steam shovel would come over and put a load, and it'd make a load, and the train had moved far enough then ahead for it to put the second dipper there. In other words, there was no lost motion. by the steam shovels.
Special dumping devices allowed the trains to be unloaded with one giant sweep, depositing millions of tons of soil to create a huge earthen dam, 1.5 miles long, a half-mile thick at the base. It would take that much volume to hold back the water of the huge man-made lake. Meanwhile, in the cut, 61 million pounds of dynamite was the primary tool for moving earth. The explosive force was equal to all the firepower used in all the wars the United States had fought up until that time. Often the tropical heat would make the dynamite unstable. It would explode unpredictably. A sudden blast killed 27 men in a single blinding instant. Other workers were killed or injured by flying debris. Funerals were as regular as rain. Sometimes the blasts sparked deadly fires. A Panamanian fire department was formed to respond, but was largely untrained in the techniques of fighting fires.
The Panamanian fire department, instead of going around, you know, and fighting it back, they just followed with it. And when it exploded, I think there were 6 or 7 firemen that were just blown to bits.
It was not uncommon for workers to be ground under the wheels of the speeding trains, caught unaware due to the deafening noise at the site. But Teddy Roosevelt was pleased with the progress. The American effort was digging in a single day what the French had taken a month to match. In 1906, Roosevelt decided to see the work for himself and arrived in Panama for an inspection tour. The first time in history a president had left the United States while in office, and the first time a world leader had ever posed for photos in the seat of a steam shovel.
It was in November, which was the worst month of the rainy season. And when he saw the conditions under which the men were working, their sincerity, their determination to get the job done, he felt that they should have a pin or a badge or something. So he had French junk sent to the Philadelphia Mint. And there were over 7,400 medals that were struck and were given to those who had served 2 years or more during the construction days.
The medals struck from the steel of discarded French construction equipment featured a cameo of Roosevelt.
My medal, number 6726. There's a lot of history between number 1 and 6726.
Digging the waterway through the Panamanian mountains was a monumental feat, but that was only part of the construction process. The locks which would lift and lower ships from the elevated canal were equally mammoth structures. Their jobs would be to raise the world's largest ships to the height of a 7-story building. Built in 36-foot sections, they were the largest concrete structures on Earth, 1,000 feet long, 110 feet wide. Each of the 6 locks could hold an object the size of the Eiffel Tower. They were designed to fill with water flushed in from the lake through pipes the size of railroad tunnels, with 2 valves weighing 10 tons each. Even though the lock doors weighed 700 tons, they were so perfectly balanced that their opening and closing required only the power of a 40-horsepower motor, the same power used by many industrial lawnmowers. The locks operated exclusively from electricity, a radical new technology for the time, and their power was to be generated by Gatun Dam, a 1.5-mile long earth barrier made from the soil of the Culebra Cut. Because of the enormous volume of water in the man-made lake, the dam is designed to process in a single day the water equivalent of 2 Niagara Falls. The Panama Canal represents a perfect balance between technology and teamwork, dreams and determination. It was born of a unique convergence of men, might, and money, which defined a defiant age.